Thanks for joining us, everybody. So as Kelsey mentioned, today we're going to be going over how you can save time with Copilot in Microsoft Sustainability Manager. First, let's begin with some quick introductions. So my name is Nikol Vladinska. I am a technical program manager here on the Microsoft Sustainability Manager Carbon product team, and I lead the AI development within Microsoft Sustainability Manager. So please send me all of your questions, both related to Copilot, related to other features within the product, or really just about AI in general. I would love to get to know each other and connect further. Let's go over the agenda for today. So we'll begin with an overview of Copilot in Microsoft Sustainability Manager. Through this, we'll spend a little bit of time talking about the different skills that Copilot has within the product and how each of them can be utilized. We'll then go through a demo showcasing each of those pre-discussed skills, and we'll talk a little bit about it through the lens of our persona, Evan, who is a sustainability practitioner at Contoso Coffee Co. Then we're going to go through some frequently asked questions regarding Copilot and really more broadly a little bit about AI within Microsoft Sustainability Manager. And then we'll finish it out at the tail end with some Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started. So Copilot in Microsoft Sustainability Manager currently encompasses 4 separate skills that really come together to create a cohesive assistive technology within the product, or in other words, a Copilot within the product. So the first thing we have is data querying. So data querying, in other words, really just asking questions to Copilot, is the ability to very quickly get information from the tabular data within the product. As of today, you're able to ask questions within any of the reference data for the product or any of the application processes within the product. Now, when I say application processes, I mean things like your calculation profile runs, things like your ingestion jobs, things like the statuses and states of all of your scorecards and goals within the product. So things of that nature, you're able to check in on the progress on, you're able to ask things like, okay, how many calculation profiles have we run for a particular category or a data source? How many ingestions have successfully processed within the last 30 days? How many of my goals are at risk for a particular type of data? Things of that nature. Moving us forward into a next skill, we then have the creation of calculation models. For those of us who are familiar with calculation models within the product today, you have to go through almost a building block of sorts to really put together your calculation model. In these building blocks, you describe things like where your data is coming from, the emission factor library that you would like to utilize, as well as the specific numeric columns and the inputs and outputs that you would like for the calculation model to utilize. With Copilot, we are reimagining the way that we are creating calculation models, and we're changing from that manual building block process to a more automated, seamless approach where you describe the calculation model that you want to create, and Copilot creates it for you, saving you several minutes in the process. Finally, once Copilot has created that calculation model, you go in, validate everything, fill in any additional missing information that may not have been entered initially, and then go ahead and save your calculation model, at which point it's ready for use. Our third skill within Copilot is the ability to analyze ESG documents. So you're able here to upload either PDF, Word doc, or .text files and ask Copilot questions regarding their contents. You can query one document at a time, or you can also query up to 5 documents at a time if you're trying to do a comparative analysis of sorts. This can be really valuable when you're doing things like supplier comparisons between different documentations, or when you're analyzing perhaps prior reports from your organization to see where you're at this year. Other use cases for this that I can think of is an informational type of sorts, which we'll see in the demo today. So let's say you're trying to learn about a particular Scope 3 category. Now I'm hinting at the video we'll see in a moment, but you can learn about the different ways to calculate for your Scope 3 categories. You can learn about things like CSRD requirements and other reporting guidelines simply by uploading the related documentation and letting Copilot do the rest. Finally, we have the ability to generate a preparatory report within the product. Again, for folks who have used Microsoft Sustainability Manager in the past, you're aware of the reporting portion of our product. Here, you're able to generate a CSRD, emissions, water, waste, etc. preparatory reports, which are Excel-based reports that pull all of the relevant quantitative data within the product and put it into a Excel-based report for you to then take into formal reporting standards. With Copilot, rather than filling in the manual preparatory report form, you can now simply ask Copilot to create that preparatory report for you, again, for CSRD, emissions, water, or waste reports, by simply giving it a few pieces of information, such as report name, the reporting period, the organizational unit, the language. Sometimes you can even drill down by a particular scope or set of categories that you'd like to look into, etc. So that just about covers the 4 separate skills that encompass Copilot in Microsoft Sustainability Manager. The next thing we're going to look at is a demo that covers all 4 of these skills. Let's do that now. So as I mentioned earlier, this is through the lens of Evan, Contosa Sustainability Practitioner. So Evan begins inside of document analysis. He has uploaded the Scope 3 calculation guidance, and he's looking at the different ways to calculate waste generated in operations emissions. Copilot will then parse this 182-page document and extract the relevant information for Evan. Let's see how it does that. So after a few moments here, we can see that Copilot has returned a response for us listing 3 different methodologies from the document on ways to calculate this data. Evan finds out which data matches the data source that he wants to calculate for, or what his data matches, and now he goes into the creation of the calculation model component. Here, he is using the information he just discovered from document analysis, combined with the data and the factor libraries that he knows he has to describe the calculation model that he'd like to create. It looks like Evan would like to create a calculation model for waste generated in operations that multiplies the waste quantity by the associated EPA 2022 factor library set. Let's see how Copilot goes ahead and creates this calculation model for Evan. Alrighty. So this is quite a simple example here, but it does give a good representation or a good overview of how the functionality works. We can see that Copilot has correctly identified waste quantity and the relevant EPA 2022 factor library set. Evan verifies all of the details here and goes ahead and saves his model. After saving, he goes out and just verifies that that is now in his list of calculation models. The next thing that Evan does is he goes and he calculates his waste generated in operations emissions, as well as the other data for Scope 3. Finally, he does some analysis within the Analytics tab of MSM. Here, he sees some interesting information between 2 organizational units, and he decides to ask Copilot a little bit more about it. He notices that Contosa USA and Contosa APAC have very similar amounts of emissions, but he finds it really interesting that Contosa USA has 7 facilities, while Contosa APAC only has a single facility in Japan. After doing that deeper dive with Copilot, he then decides to move into the final skill that we'll be looking at today, which is the generation of a preparatory report. So let's see how Evan goes about doing that. We are now within the reporting part of the product, where Evan requests an emissions report. Copilot comes back and asks Evan for a few additional details for this report, such as the reporting year, what Evan would like the report to be called, and if he wants to filter down by a specific scope of emissions. Evan, in this case, would like to focus on the year 2022, the Scope 3, and he wants to name it Scope 3 Emissions Report. After some time, we can see that the report is now ready to be generated. After Evan verifies that all of the Scope 3 categories are there, he goes ahead and generates his report. And that brings us to the end of the demo through the lens of Evan, Contosa's Sustainability Practitioner today. The next thing we're going to do together is we're going to go through some frequently asked questions about Copilot. The first question, how can I enable a Copilot? Copilot is currently available on Microsoft Sustainability Manager Premium. This is both for our trial customers as well as our paid customers. You can learn how to enable it by following the link on screen. I will also be sharing these links after the session for easy access, so no worries about trying to copy this through. The next question that we'll be going through is, how does Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability apply responsible AI principles to Copilot? That's a really great question, and one that we take very seriously. An AI system includes not only the technology, but also the people who use it, the people affected by it, and the environment where it's deployed. You can learn more about our responsible AI principles and how we apply them at the link I've attached. Here, you'll be able to read more about the applied uses of our Copilot application. You'll be able to read a little bit more about how we go through the rigorous testing process within Microsoft for not only this tool, but all others that use generative AI as well. And you'll also be able to read a lot more information about what the approved versus unsupported uses are of Copilot within Microsoft Sustainability Manager. The last question that I would like for us to go through today is, what languages is Copilot available in? Another great and very frequently asked question here. Copilot is currently only supported in English. However, the document analysis tool allows you to upload languages in 22 languages that are then translated and able to be queried in English. I've included a link to the full list of languages here. And again, please do not worry, I will definitely be sharing these links after the session as well. If you find the content from today's session interesting, I recommend that you also attend my session on Thursday, where we will be talking about what-if analysis. What-if analysis is a custom AI model that that gives you the ability to forecast the impact of business practice changes on your emissions with 15 customizable scenarios that you can really tailor to your organization's needs. This allows you to do things like predict what it would look like or forecast what it would look like to switch to renewable energy at one of your facilities, or switch the supplier that you're working with for a particular purchased good or service. You can also do things such as seeing what it would look like to extend your business travel, or seeing, what it would look like if your employees had to commute to a further away or a closer office. Things of that nature, and much, much more that we will discuss at Thursday's session. So please join us there. Next, a couple of links for us today. We've got the feedback link. As Kelsey mentioned earlier, you can begin your feedback now and go back and edit it later. You can also follow this link here. Again, all links I will share offline as well through the chat, so you have access, but you can learn more about Copilot through our public documentation. I also highly, highly encourage that you join our sustainability community. Our sustainability community is a public forum where we discuss things like Copilot, things beyond Microsoft Sustainability Manager, etc. Finally, if you're looking to learn more about these different features that we're talking about at the Tech Summit, I recommend that you visit our learning resources.